What Crystal said is enthusiasm, which is a Greek word. It means in theos, spirit within, showing without. I'll go with that only slightly and say, add to that every one of us, like you said, a thumbprint, an eye print. But more importantly, what is your mind print? And by that, now, brain inventory stuff, that's what schools stuff you with, which is not working very well right now. Mind is what you think with. Mind is where you ask questions. Mind is where you grow. Mind is infinite. And what we've learned is that when you ask these questions and get yourself out of the out of the withhold, out of the doldrum, what happens is you have illumination, you have solution, you have an answer. And the spiritual law is ask and you shall receive. So you cannot ask without receiving.
Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Well, welcome to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. What an amazing week we're having this week, and I'm really honored. I didn't realize this, but one of my favorite books that I read was called The 1 Minute Manager, and I read that book many years ago. And when I looked at just the book and I was going over my guest for this week, it really ministered to me. And he doesn't know this, but he changed my life. He really opened my mindset to becoming a multimillionaire. So I want to welcome to the show right now Mr. Mark Victor Hansen and his beautiful wife, Crystal. Welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Listen, we are thankful to be here.
Thank you, Daniel. So happy to be here with you today.
And because you mentioned 1 Minute Millionaire, I got to tell you, we've done podcasts literally all around the world, in Australia and Israel and everywhere, selling our new book, Ask. But so many people have told me, that I helped them open their minds to wealth. And that was my whole goal, is I wanted to say, look, and especially in times now, that everyone can become a millionaire. There's one right, perfect, easy, acceptable way to everyone. I don't care what your way is, as long as it's honest, ethical, moral. But the fact of the matter is that people like you keep telling us, like one guy just said, I made $20 million 2 days ago, Daniel Kushel. And I just go, thank you, God, because that was the whole goal.
Yeah.
Yes. And when I went back, I was like, wow, right? So you really opened up my capacity and to think like a millionaire, because I grew up here in San Antonio and I didn't have that mindset. But enough about me right now. I want to ask you this. So I think the world knows who you are. For those that have been hiding under a rock, Mr. Mark Victor Hansen and Crystal, let the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show know. I mean, I know you because I remember back in the day, I would be driving to work and there was a radio station called KTFM and they would literally read your book on the air, right? They would read your book and they said, we don't know what's going on, but these stories, we got to read it. Well, the DJ, every morning he read Chicken Soup for the Soul for about, no joke, probably like 3 months. And it just seemed like every story was always a story that ministered to my heart and soul at the time. So let the world know who you are, sir, please, on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Well, first of all, Jack Canfield and I wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul because we thought the soul of America was in trouble. What we discovered, Daniel and everyone listening, was the soul of the planet's in trouble. And that's why we sold 500 million books. Not because we're so smart, just because stories are what Jesus used. They're parables. Parables are nothing but a story. And Crystal will tell you that a story is a metaphor. And that's why they're so critical, if you want to talk.
Yeah, no, exactly. Stories are just so magical because they are metaphors for our own lives. And I think that's why people relate to stories so much. And that's why we used so many amazing stories in our new book. But, metaphor is a pattern that we learn by and that we can emulate. So it's pretty magical. That's so cool that he read the stories on the radio.
Forgive me for hitchhiking on that, but I told Chicken Soup, we said 7 discernments. The first one is it's got to give you God bumps, chili bumps, or goosebumps. When you told me that, it gave me goosebumps, and that guy interviewed me on his show. Whatever number I give you is wrong, but whether it's 5 times, 10 times, or 12 times, I can't talk for Jack, but I do. But I have no idea how often he did it. But if you see that guy and you go on his show, thank him for us and thank him for all the listeners that got such a good benefit.
Well, you said something that caught my attention right now. You said something that you thought America needed some help in the soul, and then you said really the world needed it. And, I had the pleasure of meeting you at the City Gala earlier this year. And little did we know that the world was going to transpire and shift the way it did. And we had such an amazing time, right? It was just a great time there at the city gala there. And man, just the events that have taken place. So now that we're here, what do you think your book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, would do for people right now in this time? What do y'all think about that, Mark and Crystal?
What happens is the book is set there to do exactly what you just said, uplift the soul. And I think the soul is more important, right? We believe, and I think you believe, spirit runs the mind, which runs the body, which runs our results. Now, I don't know anyone else teaching that. It's called a tetrahedral model, a 4-point model. But if what I'm saying is correct, the height of the world is spirit. That's why I don't mind saying to all the people before we began, you and we prayed. And when Crystal and I were falling indefatigably in love, we're sitting at Mother's Restaurant in Costa Mesa, California. We now live in Scottsdale, Arizona, but a lovely old man of the cloth. I mean, this guy was 90 if he was one day old, right? Leans in and says, I see how in love you guys are. Do you mind if I tell you the secret on how to stay happily married forever? Like, we're going to tell him no? I said, yeah, please. He said, well, I'm head of Billy Graham Ministries. And I said, oh, I've been with Dr. Graham a couple times. I love Billy. He says, we discovered only one thing works, praying out loud. And we just, before we even started, we prayed out loud every day. And we prayed in groups and prayed in church and all that. But rarely do husband and wives spousally pray out loud together. We do every day now because we learned that little lesson. So I hope that's of source and service because it brings you to the higher sense of self rather than the human sense of self.
Yeah. So this question is for Crystal. Crystal, what is the trait you love most about Martin Victor Hansen? Of course you love him, right? I know you love him, but what do you really admire about him, right? So I'm going to throw in that different word, admire, about him. And maybe he doesn't even know.
He just has this, unquenchable enthusiasm and passion for life. And I mean, it's always there. He always looks at everything in a positive way. He gives it a positive spin. And that is such a gift and such a talent. I mean, it's a gift from God, really, because he's just so filled with possibility. And that's what he looks at. Okay, well, this happened. That wasn't good or whatever, but here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to stay positive. And he's just got so much enthusiasm. It's really special.
So would you say that's rubbed off on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think he and I were attracted to each other because, we both wake up the same every day wanting the same thing basically from life. And we want to look at life as, possibility. We want to look for what's good in our day. We want to look for what we can do that makes a difference. We're not the type of people that wake up and go, let me find 20 things that are wrong,
Yes.
And we were both married before. And so we really appreciate having this, soulmate and life partner who has the same spiritual values and just values for life. That it makes such a difference because we can go forward. I mean, a lot of bad things happen in the world, like right now, but we always hold strong to our faith and we look for how we make a difference, how to look at the positives, what we need to learn. And it's really a great blessing to have that in a partner. We appreciate it so much because we didn't always have that.
I'm going to tell you, Mr. Marvin, what I admire about you is the fact that you had an option. You've been very successful as an author, as a business owner, and you literally you had the opportunity to ride into the sunset, to say, right? And you haven't. And I want to thank you for giving back to all of us, because right now, just you being on this podcast, you're going to speak so much life into our audience. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And that's what I admire about you, because if you wanted to retire, you could, but you chose not to. And that says that you're an amazing just person, individual, and man of God. And I just want to commend you for that. And thank you for that, sir.
I'm humbled and thankful. Humble means teachable. So let me talk to you about that and talk to everyone listening. If you read Genesis in the beginning, 1:28, Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. Some people don't know their way around the Bible. I did Chicken Soup for the Soul Bible, so I'm an amateur, but I got a pretty good grasp. It says two things. You're made in the image and likeness of God. And everything before that is create, and then you're created. Therefore, ergo, you and I are here to do only two things: create and contribute. Create and contribute. It does not say, go thou and retire, thou art now rich. Go thou and retire, thou art now 55, 65, 85. I'm 72, healthy, and I plan to live to be 127 options for renewal. Right now, we need the senior people to come out and train some of these young, I'll call them whippersnappers, and get the protesters to start investing first in themselves, then investing in businesses. And instead of burning businesses, start building businesses. And that's why we wrote the book Ask. And we had no idea we'd be going into the torment, travail, and torpor. But we're saying, hey, look, in Ask, you can take disadvantage, turn it to advantage. You can take adversity and turn it into opportunity. And so if you look at this right, we're in the most exquisitely exciting time in human history.
Yes. And well, let me ask you this. You brought up a good point, because I definitely want to add value to the entrepreneurs, the businesses out there. Why do you think right now a lot of these businesses that are struggling, failing, what do you think is the cause of that? And second, what do you think a solution could be to that?
I want both of us to answer. If you don't mind, I'll go first.
Yeah, no problem.
Everybody, our corporate symbol, as you know, in the 1 Minute Millionaire is a butterfly, the universal symbol of freedom, which is we believe you got to be healthy, then you got to have love, then you got to have freedom, right? The triangle. So what we believe is the following. We believe that, all of us sort of start out as a caterpillar, meaning that you start out at zero. I started out at zero and have made myself really well off, abundant health, happiness, joy, love, and all that. Then you go into the cocoon. I'm suggesting 8 billion people, never before in history have we had so many locked down, sequestered, shut down, and they're scared because they're in the dark. But we're going to come out of this cocoon and we're going to be able to be high-flying butterflies, and the opportunities are more enormous than ever. We're going to do $50 trillion in the next decade from 2020 to 2030. It's going to be the boom, just like after the Depression of 1998. We had 3 things happen. We created the automobile, the telephone, and airplanes. Pretty big. You want to add to that, I'm sure.
Well, no, I just love that metaphor of the cocoon and the butterfly, because right now, yeah, we've all had to pull back in. But the most important thing is that we need to remember, while we've been in this stage, to really turn inward and, turn into God and really ask ourselves the questions that will lead us to new answers. And that's why we wrote the book Ask, because it's amazing that it was released right in the middle of a pandemic, because as it's turned out, so many people are thanking us because they don't know what to do. A lot of people, they don't have the answers right now, but that's what asking the questions does. It opens up all of the possibilities that are there for you. And we're just telling people, do not let the enemy make you hopeless. This is a time of great change, but it's an equal time of great opportunity. So go inside, spend some time with yourself and with God. We say in our book, Ask, there are 3 channels through which to ask. You need to learn to ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. And each of those channels is equally important. And that is the most important journey we can take right now, as we're, like Mark said, in this cocoon. Is it's time to reboot for a lot of us. But the worst thing we could do is give up hope. We need to stay so hopeful and understand the opportunity is equal to this crisis. And that's the exciting part of it.
So let me ask you this, Crystal. Would you say that many people don't ask themselves because they don't want to deal with the pain?
Yes. I mean, it's funny because when we are born, we come into this world as children, Daniel, so beautiful, so perfect. We ask everything. We're massively curious. We want to know who, what, when, where, why, how. We never stop asking, right?
Yes.
And live with that, because that's the spirit that God put inside of us. We also ask for more, right? And then over time, that asking, that beautiful ability and the curiosity and the ability to ask and the desire to want more sort of gets crushed out of us through life. It might be the way we were raised. Our parents said, stop asking so many questions, or at school, you're asking too many questions. Don't talk, don't ask until you're called on. Jobs, just basic life rejection, we start to get shut down. And so that beautiful curiosity, that desire for more, we start to feel almost ashamed of it. And so Mark and I realized that we needed to bring this message to the world, because it is one of the most important things we can do. We are the only animal on this earth that has the ability to ask. And this, in the studies we did, we found that when you ask yourself a question, literally a different part of your brain lights up. Think about how amazing God created us, right? We ask a question, boom, a different part of our brain becomes a great resource to us, and you will find the answer. And so It does start, I think, with the asking yourself part, that it's that reflective journey. We need to sit down with ourselves and start asking those questions.
Yes, I love that. I think one thing I was excited, right? Because we're me and my wife, God just blessed us with a new house, and it's been amazing. But it's God had put in my heart, beginning of August, that I'm going to grow your heart. And I was like, yeah, right. Like, it just in my God time. And I was thinking like, but I had no idea that growing my heart meant healing my heart just from past hurts. And it hurts, right? Because he shows you the pain that you got to deal with. And I can tell you honestly from my heart that there's times in August that I was just crying, just like, what are you doing, God? But as he takes out that hurt that's buried deep down inside, right? I always say the first level of topsoil is easy to kind of dig up, but then the deeper you dig, the harder it gets. And I love that. And I want to encourage my audience right now. This is a time that I want you to get pen and paper. Mark and Chris are going to drop some wisdom bombs. You got to write down what they're talking about, because when you write it down, you're going to retain it and you're going to memorize it. It's going to help the quality of your life. So thank you so much for that. So this question is for both of y'all, of course. Tell us a time in your life that you lost your confidence, and what did you learn about yourself in that season, and what did you do to regain it?
Profound question. So it's 1974. I've been in graduate school with one of the smartest guys ever, Dr. Buckminster Fuller was Einstein's best student, invented geodesic domes, wrote 40 bestsellers, had 15 doctorates at Harvard. I was in awe of him, and I tried to be him. So I'm in New York City as a young 20-something building. I built the Wall Street Racquet Club, botanical gardens, aviaries, homes. Problem, Daniel, I'm building out of plastic, PVC, polyvinyl chloride, at a time when the Arabs said, we can write checks, so big your bank's amount. And suddenly our interest rate went to 28%. We had a fuel shortage. You may have been a kid by this time. Or when were you born? What year?
Actually, I was born in 73.
Okay, so your parents had to suffer like I was as a young adult. The point is, I went bankrupt in one day, because if you ask the wrong question, I said, what if I go bankrupt? I checked the book out of the library, how to go bankrupt by yourself. So I went bankrupt, my best, worst experience. I'm sleeping out in front of another guy's bedroom in a sleeping bag for 6 months. I have, back to what your question was, my self-worth and my net worth were trashed. But suddenly I'm asking myself, well, what do I want to do? And God, what is my highest, best use? And suddenly it came to me, I should speak to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. I go to my 3 roommates in Hicksville, Long Island, New York, and I say, hey, you guys, any of you know a young speaker that's not a celebrity, not an attorney, not a doctor, not a famous person, just a young guy that's making money? The guy said, yeah. Here's my ticket to this real estate meeting. Chip Collins, he's a little older than you, but he's young and he's doing it. I go to Hauppauge, Long Island, New York, race out my beat up old Volkswagen that the bankruptcy courts had not taken. I arrive, there's 500 people. I get in. He wows the audience. He mesmerized them. At the end of his talk, I walk up and I said, I'm Mark Victor Hansen. I'd love to buy your lunch. Can I ask you how to do this business? He said, I'll tell you, kid, because you're asking, but I want you to know you're not going to make it. 1 in 1,000 makes it as a speaker. You're not going to make it. But if you'll stay out of real estate, which I own in the 5 boroughs of New York, I'll teach you how to do it, kid, in life insurance. Long story compressed, I did 1,000 talks a year. As far as I know, only Tony Robbins and I did that kind of massive action the first 3 years of the business. I was doing little insurance meetings. And then somebody said, you have this story in a book. And the first book I wrote is This Ask, but it was stand up, speak out, and win. And I was earning about 70 grand. And now suddenly I tripled my income with this little book. I sold 20,000 books to little audiences.
Wow.
That's 200 plus grand. And it was so nice because I said, this isn't a New York Times bestseller. This isn't a national bestseller. This is my bestseller.
Boom!
Everybody was so sympathetic that they all let me autograph. And they got a lot of good results, just like you have with my stuff. And I'm thankful for that. I want everyone to, books are such a little investment, but they change your life. And what we are in is a transformational business, a legacy we want to leave. We're living it ourselves. But I never said that before. But we want to leave is see how many people we can help. And right now, just with your help and you, we want to touch 1 billion lives positively and transform them.
So what did you learn about yourself as you came out of this?
I learned that, first of all, my net worth and self-worth weren't the same, like I just said. Second of all, that I had greatness potentially in me, which, people would say, well, you've talked to 7 million people around the world in 80 countries and you sold 500 million books. That's not who I am. Who I am is God in me unfolding to source and serve humanity to its own greatness and success.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that, because you were being genuine. And most people right now, they're in that season that you were in back then, right? Just imagine what you just said. You filed for bankruptcy. Your dreams were shattered. A lot of people's right now dreams have been shattered. And this is Mark Victor Hansen saying that he came out of it. You can come out of it. We all have that God purpose in us. We all have God's presence in us. And I love that you acknowledge that your faith in this, sir. It gives me so much joy, because that power, we all have it if we just tapped into it. If we just realize that, hey, everything we need is already inside of us. It's amazing. How about yourself, Crystal? Give us a time when you went through something similar where you lost your confidence.
Oh, I'd love to, Danny. You know what I want to say? Just one thing about that I think is so important for the audience to remember. Mark never would have achieved his destiny. He never would have become Mark Victor Hansen. He never would have done Chicken Soup for the Soul if he had just lumped along and his geodesic dome business was okay and he never went bankrupt. So when we're looking at these terrible crises that we think this is going to destroy me and I hate myself and I'm a loser, it might be the very thing that has to happen for you to get to your destiny, because he never would have gotten to his destiny had he not gone through that horrible thing. I just think it's so important to think about that, you know?
Yeah. And I understand, because my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer 3 years ago. And when she got diagnosed, it's like when you hit it, it's like a 18-wheeler hits you. But so much blessings have come out of the 3 years were hard, right? Well, the first 2 years really stunk. But it just really brought our family closer together. And now that she's cancer free and she's come out of it, it's like we see the beautiful flower that blossomed, right? Kind of like how he was talking about the caterpillar. We were that caterpillar in that season of 2 years. It was dark. It was like, man, are we ever going to get out of this? And I remember there was even a part of me, as much faith as I had, I was mad at God. I was like, God, why is this lingering, right? There's always one part that lingers, but it's to continue to build our character and our godliness. And finally, when we got over that hump, I look back now and I'm like, because that's what drew us closer to him to keep us where we're at right now. And you're exactly right at that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But so for me, I think one of the most difficult times was when I was very young. I was one of those kids who found high school to be really easy. So I accelerated my curriculum and graduated myself at age 16 and then married my boyfriend, who was 5 years older. Not a good life plan, right? 2.5 years later, I'm divorced, baby on my hip, in a new city with no family, no friends, no job, and absolutely no idea how I'm going to support myself. So I did the only thing I could think of, and that was to apply for food stamps. So the first day I went to that grocery store to exchange my food stamps for groceries, Daniel, all of a sudden I had this huge epiphany. And it felt like it all happened in a nanosecond, but it's like time slowed down, and this light was shining on my head as I was getting ready to do that. This question dropped into my mind, and it was like, how did you get here? And this followed by a second question was, are you doing the best you can to get out of this situation, or are you taking the easy way out? And the minute that question dropped in my mind, I knew the answer. I knew that I wasn't doing the best I could. I knew I wasn't tapping into the best that I am. So it was like, I just did this complete pivot inside my mind and heart. And as I was turning over those food stamps, I was saying to myself, this will not be my destiny. And I went home. I don't even think I finished the food stamps. I was so determined. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm rejecting this path of victimization. I'm not going to be there. So I just started asking myself more questions because I had no answers, but I did have questions. So I was like, how can I start making money tomorrow? And I'd heard about temporary service agencies like Kelly Services. Called them up. I applied. They start sending you a bunch of different temporary jobs. You can say yes or no. So I started getting these jobs, and then I realized I could register with more temporary service agencies. None of them would know, but I'd have a better chance of better jobs every day. So pretty soon I'm working every day because I'm getting fed. I'm picking the best jobs, but I'm starting to work like in attorneys' offices, filling in, and working at sales conventions, at conventions that come through town, doing sales and stuff like that. And I started really, setting up booths at malls and things like that. Anyhow, I started realizing a lot. I learned a lot about myself, that I actually was pretty good at business and especially sales, that I really liked it. And then I really liked working with people. I just love it. And so I put myself through real estate school, got enough money to do that. In the meantime, I had also, someone said, you should go do some modeling. So I approached the biggest agency in our town and asked them if they would sign me. Fortunately, they said yes. And I ended up getting some television commercials, which went national. So then I started rolling in these residuals, and I got Screen Actors Guild benefits. Because once you do enough in royalty money, they make you join the guild. So now, a year and a half from that time when I was turning over those food stamps to the cashier, it was a little more than a year and a half. I was now working for the top home builder in our valley. I ended up becoming the top salesperson at our company. And I'm getting all these insurance benefits and royalties from my television commercials. So life got a lot easier for me and my little guy.
And I want my honesty to take that away, because I think what I got from that segment, you just said this, Crystal asked herself, am I doing the best that I possibly can right now? And I want you right now, those listening all across the world, ask yourself, am I doing the best in my life in this season? Because what I heard Crystal say is she didn't play the victim mentality. She had money to buy the groceries. She had money to pay with food stamps. And thank you for being so transparent, Crystal. But if Crystal can open up her heart, if Mark can open up their heart and tell us at the lowest of lows what they're doing, what they went through, you need to look at yourself in the mirror right now and ask yourself this question, right? It goes with your book. You need to ask. You need to ask yourself, am I doing the best that I can do right now? And be honest with yourself, because you can lie to anybody you want to lie to, but you can't lie to yourself. And that's a profound question, Crystal. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I want to ask you this, Mr. Hansen. What makes Mark Victor Hansen distinctive? What makes you unique, right? What makes you stand out of everything that you've been through? What is the one thing that makes you unique that really, and I love that word distinctive, because it means that you're one of a kind. Only one person has your fingerprint. That's you. Only you have your own voice. What part of Mark Victor Hansen that maybe the world doesn't even know of makes you distinctive?
What Crystal said is enthusiasm, which is a Greek word. It means entheos, spirit within, showing without. I'll go with that only slightly and add to that every one of us, like you said, a thumbprint, an eye print. But more importantly, what is your mind print? And by that, now, brain inventory stuff, that's what schools stuff you with, which is not working very well right now. Mind is what you think with. Mind is where you ask questions. Mind is where you grow. Mind is infinite. And what we've learned is that when you ask these questions and get yourself out of the out of the withhold, out of the doldrum, what happens is you have illumination, you have solution, you have an answer. And the spiritual law is ask and you shall receive. So you cannot ask without receiving. So that's why we're saying you got to ask the right questions. And what we're saying is, hey, look, our mind prints want to help everybody else's mind print. Get a copy of the book Ask at Amazon. But then we want you to buy 10, not for us, but think of the people that are depressed, despondent, disconsolate, or right now suicide's going off the Richter scale. Like we're the co-chairman of Child Help, which has helped 10.5 million kids get out of abuse and neglect and sex trafficking. So we know as insiders the depth of the problem going on in America at levels that most media doesn't even touch. I get goosebumps telling you, we need everyone to ask. And if you can afford the books, get them and then give them to other people. The laws of sowing and reaping are so vast if you'll do it. You know, it's a little investment, but it's going to get big returns to those people. It's going to keep them alive, especially if they're called family members, somebody that you love, or an employee, or a boss even that is going, oh my God, how am I going to keep this business open? Or the church, the pastor, the minister, the priest, the rabbi, how am I going to keep my congregation together? Because it can't, most states, our state in Arizona, you can't, it's not open, unfortunately, unless you got less than 49.
Yes.
With me. You can go protest.
Yeah, you can go protest, right? No, and I love that too. I want to say that in life, there's so many opportunities that if we just ask ourselves. And I love, because I heard this, I think it was from Dr. James Dentley, right? He told me this, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself.
Correct.
So right now, as you're hearing this podcast, you need to go on Amazon, you need to go and get yourself 10 copies of this book, Ask, and sow seeds into other people's lives, just the way Mr. Mark Victor Hansen said. And the thing is this, is when you're the most depressed, when you're the most despair, and you think outside yourself and you sow those seeds, the world, God was going to bless you back. I know they say 10, I believe 100-fold. That's what I believe God for, is 100-fold return, right? That's what I believe in.
36.
Crystal, let me ask you this, Crystal.
Yeah.
What is a quote or a verse that has carried you during your times of hardship that you fall back on? And tell us what it means to you.
You know, the 23rd Psalm. The 23rd Psalm is so powerful to me because, you know, when we're going through difficult times, it truly does, for all of us, feel like we're going through the valley of the shadow of death, you know. But not only reminds us that God is not only with us, he already knows ahead of time what's happening. He's the one who's prepared a place for us at the table of our enemy, right? He's already there anointing our heads with oil. And our cup is running over. We may not see it because it feels like we're in the valley of the shadow of death. But that just moves me every time. And it's so powerful to me. I use it as a meditation mantra, you know, because it's just, I would really encourage people to do that, just to read it over, like over and over again, like your meditation mantra, because you realize you are never alone. God is with you through this entire journey and will always be with you.
I love that, man. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Mark Victor Hansen, let me ask you this. If someone right now, what's the best business advice that you can give to somebody out there right now? Maybe it's a young entrepreneur. Maybe you've been in business for some years and it's like, you know, you're thinking about giving up, right? You're out of resources. Speak to that person for a moment, because I think you have a lot of words that God wants to speak to you right now on that business aspect. And speak to somebody right now listening that, you know what, I'm done. I'm finished. Talk to that person, please, sir.
So we said in our book, you ask yourself, others, and God. Let's just go to God. And what we're saying is, before you go to sleep at night, when your mind never sleeps, the subconscious never sleeps, you say to yourself, God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me now? You do it at least 101 times. Or you say, God, what's my right livelihood? God, what's my right livelihood? God, what's my right livelihood? Or when Jack and I were doing the book, I didn't like the title Dr. Canfield had come up with. And I said, Jack, it isn't going to work, man. I love you, but the title sucks. It just isn't going to sell. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, we'll give ourselves a thought command. That's what we call it. They call it in psychiatry, and go through mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title. Both of us in our respective houses. He was in Santa Barbara. I was in Newport Beach, California at the time. He calls me at 2:00 in the morning, wakes up the whole family. This is before cell phones. And unplug it. Wakes up everything. They weren't happy. And he said, chicken soup. I said, for the soul. I said, that's it. Now, 144 publishers rejected us and our agent fired us, but we knew we had the right title. Now, what does that mean to everybody listening? If you'll ask yourself, God in you, that higher, bigger, spiritual sense of self, knows the unfoldment of your soul and your spirit and your mind and your body, but you've got to be ready in the middle of the night and tell your sweetie, hey, if Mark and Crystal are telling the truth in that book, I'm probably going to wake up in the middle of the night, turn on the light, and forgive me, but I'm going to have to write this down. And he said, you got to write down in detail whatever you're told. And I'll just give one crazy example. I'm selling seminars back when I started. And I told myself this. I learned this a long time ago. I read the book, The Magic of Lead by Claude Bristol. I say, then you earn $400 a day, 250 days a year. That's $100,000. And this is like the first year in business I was doing that. And I said, 400. And then I wake up at like 2:58 in the morning. I had a big digital clock next to the bed. And it said Bill Widener, State Mutual. And I go, okay, God, I heard you. I write it down. I never heard of this guy, and I don't know that company. I was working with Metropolitan and Prue. Anyhow, next day I'm cold calling at 12 o'clock. It says Bill Widener, State Mutual. I walk in. There's nobody at the desk. It's lunchtime. I walk back to his office. He wrote me a check for $400 in less than 5 minutes. He said, later, he hired me a lot, but he said, I didn't know if you'd ever come back, but you were so excited. I was glad to give you a check. I mean, that's how clear God is. God's got your money, your tomorrow money, but you got to live in John 10:10. I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. It didn't say sometime in the future. It's in the sweet, expectant now and now.
So what's that question again that we should say? I love that.
God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? Because
God, what's your destiny for me? I love that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're alive, Crystal and I really worked hard on this book, and I think we got lightning in a bottle a second time. We think it's going to be bigger than chicken soup because everyone has the power to ask themselves that question. And if you're alive, even though you're in the dark right now in the cocoon, God's got some great destiny for you. It's bigger, better, bolder than you even could imagine. And because you're listening to our dear friend Daniel, who we think the world of, he's going to implode you with confidence so you can go forth and do great things.
Amen. So, Crystal, for the women listeners, talk to those women right now and leave us with the word of wisdom that they can just go out there and walk into the day, into the morning, whenever they listen to this podcast. Give them a word of wisdom right now that you can just really encourage them and edify them, if you don't mind, please.
Right. No, I'd love to. I want to say this because this is an important aspect of the book. You know, we say the 3 channels are ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. We need to understand, and I think for women especially, for both men and women, but women, we really need each other as a network. The asking others part is so important. And what we found in the research that we did, the studies show that people are afraid to ask. In fact, in the book, we talk about the 7 roadblocks to asking, and those are unworthiness, fear, doubt, pattern paralysis, naivete, disconnection. We all have those. We have those roadblocks inside of us. We hold back and we don't ask people for help or advice or insight because we think in the studies it showed, we think going into the study that people thought that if they ask somebody for something, they might be perceived as being stupid, ignorant, uninformed, or pushy. You know, if you asked for something, asked for some assistance, you're pushy or obnoxious. And the truth is that none of those are true. You know, in reality, if we're willing to ask someone for something, there's an 80% more likely chance they will grant our wish or grant our request. But so we need to get over those roadblocks. And again, like you said, with women especially, we need each other. Our social network is very important to our psyche. It really is, and to our emotional health. And so we need to be asking, you know, as much as we're connected by social media, it's such a superficial connection. We're disconnected. And I would say get physically present with the people that you care about, the people that you can rely on, and start asking each other questions. Ask for help. Ask for some advice. Ask for some support, even if it's just emotional support. We are here to be one another's greatest resource. I mean, God gave us that assignment, but we're not doing it enough. And I think we're all afraid to ask. And we also
I agree with you on that. I agree with you 120%.
Yeah. And people are it's amazing what happens. You'll see in the book, we have so many beautiful stories of when people were so scared to ask for something, but they did it anyway. You know, they stepped on that fear with courage and a miracle happened. The person not only said yes, they granted it beyond their wildest dreams. So sure, we're going to get some rejection, but some people are going to say no. But what I tell people is that has nothing to do with you. If someone says no, or your request isn't met the way you want it to be, it has more to do with the person that you've asked. Maybe they're just not in a capacity that they can help you right then, or they're just not in a good state of mind. Keep asking. Don't take it personally. It's not about you. It's about them. Just stay on your game. You know, that's what we say. Stay in your game. Stay centered with God, and just keep asking, and let your love and light shine as you ask people, and believe your answers are there for you.
And you know what I found out is that more people are willing to help you than you realize.
Yes.
People are more willing to help you. I talked about this. We're going to have our women's conference coming up in October 10/10 here of 2020. But last year when we had it, we had our first inaugural women's conference, and it's called Finding Your Inner Beauty for Women. And it's like, well, what do I do? Right? Like, God, are you sure this is you? Right? You question God. And then next thing you know, we have this conference. And in the conference, I said this, right? Look at how many people showed up just because I asked them to sponsor and I asked them for help. And look, people are willing to help you. And the thing is, I want my audience to know that right now. Don't be so prideful, or don't feel so low of yourself right now. Either you're on one side of the totem pole, ask for help, because people right now are there for you more than you realize. And this is what people don't realize is just by talking about things going on in your life, it brings healing to your soul, because you don't leave those emotions inside. You vent them out, and it just brings healing to your body, and it takes away the anxiety, the depression. It takes away the arthritis, just a lot of things. Wow, what an amazing time I've been. I don't even want this to end. Well, we're going to call this part 1, right? To be continued. So Mr. Mark, sir, please leave us with the word of wisdom as we close out this amazing episode with you, and just leave us with the word of wisdom. And then after you tell us your word of wisdom, tell us, where can we get your book? Where can we find you and Crystal? And that way, we'll put those in the show notes, and we can definitely get our audience to get contacted with you guys.
Well, I'm going to put all that in one thing. First of all, we want everyone to become what we call a master asker. So we're saying, hey, look, get the book at Amazon if your bookstore isn't open or doesn't have it. And then you can get it in any form, audio, you name it, they've got it. So number 2 is that then come to askthebookclub.com. We are going to have a free book club where we create people to be masters at asking until they discover their destiny, because every one of us that discovers our destiny positively affects immediately 250 other people. And we just think that's so critical to happen right now. And then we would love people to come to my website, markvictorhansen.com, and I've got a free book there for everybody called How to Be Up in Down Times, How to Find Your Next Job, and all that stuff, and the big businesses that are going to explode. And then your website, darling, is
crystalvisionlife.com. And I have a free resource there that's really helpful right now. It's called Purge Messy Thinking, because we're all doing a lot of messy thinking. People are struggling. So it helps you get rid of those negative thoughts and really stay focused on the things that'll help you move forward. That's crystalvisionlife.com. And then, of course, just Amazon has the book in every form. So we love to get feedback after you guys get the book. We love to see how it's helping. I love the letters are so heartwarming to me. That's like my gold. When people say, really changed my.
I love the title of your website, Purge Negative Thinking. I love that. Don't just get it out, purge it.
Purge messy thinking. Get rid of it.
Awesome.
It's a guided visualization. So it really, you do it with your eyes closed and really to get rid of that
But
stuff.
not when you're driving.
Yeah.
We say that in the beginning. Do not use this while driving.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Audience, that's a wrap for this week's show. If you love what you heard, we would love you to join our Facebook group, the Distinctive Syndicate. We want you to become part of our community. You get more inspiration like this for business, for life, because at the end of the day, everything's interconnected. When your soul is fed, when your soul is inspired, you do better at work, you do better in every aspect of life. So we'd love for you to join our Distinctive Syndicate group here on Facebook. And we'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Thank you, everyone. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.